Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. So, great introduction. I'm going to do a quick service announcement. If anyone saw me before Mike's presentation, I was pacing the hallway like nonstop. I was wringing my hands. I was quite possibly sweating through my sweatshirt. I wasn't nervous for the presentation. Michigan was playing Iowa in the Big Ten tournament, and it went into overtime. So I thought, as soon as the game was over, I'd be able, as soon as the game was over, I'd be able to focus on my presentation. But the game went into overtime, and I couldn't focus on my presentation. So luckily, Michigan pulled it out. I don't care if any of you care. I care. So that allowed me to be able to focus on what I need to do up here. Go blue! Go blue! Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So like it was discussed, we're going to be talking. It's more along the lines of a case study. What we went through as we were growing as a startup, and then as we were acquired by a mammoth company that essentially did what we did, just on a much larger scale. It's probably going to be one of the least technical presentations that you could see here, but we thought it was important that we also included case studies in the discussions and make sure that people know the questions to ask as you get bigger. So, who am I? It was briefly discussed. My name is Derek Zell. I have an undergrad in international business and Japanese. Probably like a lot of you, I fell into QA. It was my first job. They taught me everything. I had one computer class in undergrad, and that turned into a career that's now spanned 22 years. So I have an MBA from DePaul in e-commerce, and like everybody knows, behind every picture there's a story, and my last part is, if you look at that, it's the same picture, but I also like beer. So I thought, professional Derek, and then party Derek. Yeah, thanks, Mike. All right, what are we going to cover? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we're going to cover 4 things. Background, so the problem that we ran into and how we got to that problem, how we tried to fix the problem, which we'll call the approach, the results, so what happened after we implemented the approach, and then the conclusion. So what are you going to get out of this? Hopefully it's a little bit of information. Hopefully it's some questions that you can ask as you grow. Or worst case scenario, you'll see there's actually some benefit of you being here in tangible products and goods that we'll get to in a couple of slides. So background, who we were. So at the time we were HookLogic. We started as a travel performance marketing company in 2004. Really, so if you've ever been on Priceline or Hotwire and seen something, whether it's a hotel or a car rental throwing something in, so it started with hotels being able to offer spa services at their site if you booked through their hotel. So it was a differentiator, and what we did is we allowed hotels to be able to do that. We expanded into auto and retail, and the company really started to take off. What the company did was in-grain organic ads. So for example, and I'll show you a couple of examples on the next slide, every single online retailer that you could think of outside of Amazon is now a part of our program. But what we do is we run an online auction site for advertisers and brands to be able to bid on placements on those sites. So we partner with those sites, and what happens is an advertiser can say, I really want someone that's searching for laptops to see my laptop, and I'm willing to bid X number of dollars if they click on that ad. So we work with the retailer sites, and it's actual pertinent ads. So you're looking for this item already. They already sell this item, but we're going to show it to you in a sponsored listing. So it's definitely a win-win for both sides. The advertiser gets to get their product out there, and also the publisher gets a sale, and whoever is shopping gets to see the products that they want to see. So what we did, here are some examples. So I'm going to dazzle you with a little bit of animation. Boom! Did you see that? I don't know if you guys saw that. I can rewind it if you didn't see that ad come in, but you're going to get, this presentation is really going to sparkle here in a few minutes. So you'll see here, this is a Walmart.com homepage. So right there in the middle, it says, check out our featured products. So every single one of those products is being placed by, at this time, HookLogic. So those look like in-grain ads. They are in-grain ads. That placement is injected by our JavaScript onto their page. So for example, if someone is going to outbid the Google Home there, then that Google Home will go away, or they'll move farther down. So it gives everyone a level playing field. If you're willing to spend the money, you can get your ads on Walmart's homepage. Another example, this is a search term on Best Buy. So someone typed in Xbox. The featured products there at the bottom, those are all served by our ad server. And Kohl's, another example, featured products and featured toy box favorites. So we leave it up to the publisher to be able to say how they want to display the ads, but then we inject them. And then here's Peapod as well. So here's a little bit more of the in-grain organic. So you can see this is a search for cheese. And then the sponsored banner above the wonderful Kraft mild shredded cheese is our ad being injected. So again, what we talked about is relevancy. Like, you want cheese, we're going to show you cheese, right? God damn it, you're going to get your cheese. So who we were. We started, our 4 founders started the company. They ran the company until they proved the business model, and the company started expanding. You'll see the growth on the bottom. It didn't really start to take off until around 2014, which is when I joined the company. It happened to coincide with my hiring, but we can all agree that was the reason why the company took off. But it's also the retail launch of our RSX product, where what we just showed you on the previous page started to really take off. And that exponential growth is actually what led to the problem we're going to discuss. And you can see, so we went from 4 to pretty close to 200 people. You can see there on the right-hand side, the handsome devil in the front with one arm raised. That's me. Probably more than slightly hungover from the night before, but still looking happy because we were part of something that was really growing. Oh, okay, so here's what I was talking about, tangible goods. So in the display, or in the pamphlet, I did promise treats. So I do have some disclaimers though. Does anyone have any nut allergies, chocolate allergies, nougat allergies, or just general allergic to happiness? Anyone? Okay, cool. So if anyone would like a treat, I'm representing Ann Arbor, Michigan. So if any of you have heard of Zingerman's, they make some amazing desserts. So if anyone would like one, just hold up your hand. There you go. Whoa. Hey, all right. That's a test. I don't know if I can, I'll go overhand. There you go. All right, cool. So I want to try to make this somewhat exciting, right? Like, so, plus that will hurt my arm later, and my wife will really appreciate that. But I know you guys want to listen, but snacks help. So we have another slide that I'll throw more out. Okay, so now to the good stuff. Like, why are the problems? So as you could see, every one of those placements is injected by us onto those publisher sites. But what was happening during that exponential growth was we were adding so many placements that it was, when we had an issue, we weren't finding it for days, and sometimes weeks. So not a big deal when you're making a couple $100 a day, but as you're growing, you're making more money a day, and every ad placement is more important. So we're talking drastic scale. So more placements, more problems. The problems that were arising were publishers were making changes to their sites. So we're just on their site, like we're an ad on their site. So if they make a change, they're not notifying us. Our ad could either stop serving or look completely different than the rest of the page around it. Advertisers don't like that, and publishers like Walmart don't like that either, right? They like a nice clean site, and they don't want issues. So that was about 99% of the problems, and then around 1% where our creative's not working or not injecting correctly, or our delivery server not returning the correct ad. Just the sheer number of placements really forced us to be reactionary. So at this time, we were a QA team of me. It was very difficult to get through all the placements manually. So what's the problem, right? Like, the more ads added, the less time, the more time it takes, the less time one person has. So we did this. We added the questions. So this is like the secret sauce of the presentation. It's just simple questions, but it's stuff that you have to ask all the time. So we talked about the animation of the slide. There's some more. I know it was quick. I don't know if you saw it come up there, but it's pretty cool. I know. I am obviously a master of PowerPoint, and if any of you need to know how to do that, let me know. It's a key skill. So what matters most? Eliminating the need for manual validation of placement. So what was happening is literally myself or someone else in our company would go to the site and check the ad every single day. So very tedious. We're talking, as we grew, we went from 10 placements to 20 placements to 50 placements. Sometimes we even got to the point where we were adding 4 to 5 placements a day. So the list just kept on growing. So where are we growing the fastest? Obviously in publisher placements. This is a situation where as we added new publishers, we added new placements. Also existing publishers wanted more ads, so we would add more onto their current pages. So where can we as QA add the most value? So this is the important question to ask here. So in this situation, it was our job to make sure that our ads were showing all the time, to make sure that it's a situation where if an ad's not showing, that's a potential revenue loss. That's actually a revenue loss. So what is the end goal? To find the issues to help make sure that we keep making the money. So every single one of those ads was an opportunity for revenue for the company. So every single one that wasn't serving needed to be found and found quickly. So what does that mean? We came to the realization, and this is obviously simplified, that we needed test automation. So like Mr. Einstein and Napoleon say, it's an obvious answer, right? Like everyone is here because of test automation, because of Sauce Labs. But it took us a little while to figure out how we could do it. And we had to ask ourselves a little bit more a few more questions and actually come up with an approach. So our approach. We literally considered everything. And by we, it means me, because it was still just a team of one. We considered test tool suites. My background was in test automation. I'd done a ton with Mercury, Windrunner, and LoadRunner back in the day. So the tool suite was a definite option. Offshore scripting. So in a situation where we could offload all of the work to an offshore company to be able to take care of the scripting. Again, we still didn't have a tool yet, but at the same time, the decision needed to be made, how we were going to get that done. Development team scripting. So situations where developers would write their own automated tests around the code that they just did. Obviously, we know that that's a situation that's inviting catastrophe. The same developer writing code that is to test the code that they just wrote is probably not going to check the things that are going to fail, right? Like they would have coded it the right way the first time. And then the last one was a QA automation team. So this approach is different for everyone because some teams have money and budget, some teams have technical expertise, some teams have a large number of employees that can help delay decisions like this or expand the workload. We had none of these, so we needed to make a decision and make the decision quickly. So decision one. So I learned at Simon's presentation this morning that when no one raised their hand when he asked who hasn't used Selenium or who doesn't use Selenium. That was the realization where, okay, obviously now this slide doesn't make as much sense because you guys already picked Selenium. But at the same time, it was a decision that we made. So why a QA automation team though? So I'm selfish. I wanted the opportunity to run the team myself. I wanted the opportunity to determine who was on the team, what they were going to do, and why they were doing it. And then a QA automation team allows the teams to retain their core competency. Developers can develop, QA can test. It's a situation where if you try to split that up or you have the same person doing the same thing, you're going to miss a lot of the things that a QA team is actually going to catch. It's more manageable and cost effective as well. Developers writing their own tests, that's expensive. You can bring in QA engineers that can do that for them. It's a potentially lower cost and it's more manageable from an overall team size point of view. Now, why Selenium? For us, the biggest thing was it was free. We didn't have budget. We had zero budget. I had the choice of a test tool suite or people. So I figured bring in the right people and then the tool doesn't matter, especially in the case where Selenium's code independent, right? I could hire anyone that was a good developer, QA automation engineer, and as long as they could explain what they were doing and why they were doing it, it was going to be a good fit. It made hiring extremely easy. Instead of trying to find someone that could write in a specific code language, it was a situation where as long as they could write a language, then they were going to be a fit. The user community that Mike alluded to earlier at his presentation was a huge benefit as well because even though I brought in quality engineers, they still had questions, and those questions could be answered by me, or they could go out into the user community and answer them just as fast. And then also a key is the framework allowed for adding placements extremely quickly. So what we were running into was a situation where A lot of the tools we were looking at didn't have the framework that Selenium has, so we were forced to, in a lot of the trials that we were running, we had to completely create the tests every time we went to a new publisher. So Selenium's framework allowed us to plug and play, and every time we added a new publisher, it was easier to get them up and running. Okay, so we thought we were done, right? Like we made our decision, we decided on QA automation team, we decided on Selenium, but then everything should go smooth, but not so fast. Because once you do something extremely well, people develop something called expectations. And expectations can be extremely dangerous, as you all know, especially in QA. Once you prove your worth, you need to continue to prove your worth. So in this situation, it wasn't just good enough to find the issues through our test automation suite. It was every hour that we weren't finding it was costing us potentially large amounts of money. So the problem that we were facing is we had nowhere near the number of scripts that Mike showed on his slides, but we had over 200 placements that our test runs were running on one machine. It would take about 4 hours for us to complete a cycle. So every single one of our publisher placements would be tested in 4 hours. Well, a lot can happen in 4 hours, especially when you don't know what those publishers are doing. So it was great job finding these issues, but now we need to find them faster, because an issue could mean you're losing money. But more importantly, an issue could potentially mean that you lost a relationship. A relationship with Walmart, which is over, at the time, it was pretty close to 50% of our revenue, would have been catastrophic for a startup, especially when you're using a lot of those core sites as the proof to sell to other sites, right? Like, look what we're doing on Walmart. If Walmart doesn't have us on, we can't say, look what we're doing on Walmart anymore. So really the biggest issue that we were looking at is resolving the fact that a potential relationship could come in and cause some catastrophic revenue loss. So we did the questions again. So what matters most? Keeping our placements up and serving ads. It's the same issue. It's just that now we're looking at it from a different point of view. Instead of saying, wow, it would be really nice to have all our ads serving all the time, now it's we have to have our ads serving all the time. If we're going to continue to grow as we are, our ads have to be up. Where are we growing the fastest? Still, it's publisher placements, but at the same time, we were also going into the UK, into France, into South America. So we were dealing with a little bit different publishers, a few different publisher sites that actually added a little bit more complexity. So as we grew, we saturated the North American market, but now we're moving into other markets that were causing some other potential problems. So where can QA add the most value? Obviously making sure that the ads show all the time. If that's what revenue is, then that's where our resolution comes to. And what is the end goal? Now it's finding issues faster to keep making the money. Instead of finding issues, now we need to find them as fast as possible. I'm looking at my clock and I'm talking way too fast. So if I start slowing down a little bit, I'm not having a stroke. Okay, realization again. So instead of saying we need test automation, now we need scalable yet cost-effective test automation. So it's a situation where decisions beget decisions. Every time you make a decision, you need to start thinking, and I didn't think, I thought that the test automation itself would be able to scale, but when you think about how long it was taking us to get through the script run, it obviously wasn't. So we needed that scalable solution. So we went through the approach again. We considered all things. And this is where it gets a little funny. So we actually tried to create our own server farm. So as we were growing, we were adding tons of people. We went through a little bit of a slowdown, so we had a bunch of used laptops that were available. So we were like, let's create our own server farm. This is amazing. We took a conference room and lined up all the laptops, hooked them up, and said, hey, Amazon can do it. Why can't we do it at HookLogic, right? Like, it did not go well. Those laptops were thrown to the side for a reason, and we found that reason out again very quickly when we were trying to sell this as our solution. Fail, but fail fast. We'd also thought about using our production server capacity to run scripts. So at the time, we were on AWS, so we had the ability to use our production systems however we saw fit. Unfortunately, it doesn't really make sense to say the ads that are being served by our delivery servers should also run our tests, because if you add that load to those servers, then your ads might not get there in the first place, and then you're only checking the fact that you're breaking your own ads. So that wasn't a real good consideration. But then we looked into utilizing a third party, and that kind of leads us to where we're going. So again, we get back to the same situation. A lot of teams, and especially that slide that was shown at the keynote, a lot of you guys are from companies that this will never matter, right? Like, you have the budget to be able to do stuff, but a lot of the small companies don't have the money or budget or the technical expertise to be able to do a lot of this stuff. So the questions that you ask and the results that come out of those are extremely important. So what did we decide? So again, there's a little asterisk up here. This is not a commercial for Sauce Labs. This is our solution, and it's probably why we got selected to do the presentation today. But at the same time, the decisions that were made easy by a lot of contributing factors that are a part of Selenium and Sauce Labs. So why did we pick Sauce Labs? The scalable scripting that Mike talked about in his presentation, it allowed us to run concurrent threads. Right now, up to this point, all our threads were back-to-back. We weren't multi-threaded at all, so you literally had to wait for one script to complete before you could start the next one. It was also scalable infrastructure. With one call, we could add more virtuals. We didn't, because again, we didn't have a lot of money, but at the same time, knowing that we had that ability, especially during Q4, which when we made over 50% of our revenue due to Black Friday and Cyber Monday, it was nice to have that in our back pocket as if we needed to, we could do it. There were no infrastructure or maintenance costs. We had a DevOps team of 1, so adding more responsibility to that person who was already involved in the AWS contract would have been probably, we would have had a DevOps team of 0 because he probably would have left. But at the same time, it's a situation where the lack of maintenance costs was an extreme benefit in the decision. It also allowed us to run the OS and browser combinations that we'd been neglecting up to this point. If you're running a manual test or you're running one single script, you don't have time to get through multiple browsers. You might get to it eventually, but at the same time, we were finding that when we could run our scripts through Sauce Labs, that we were running into issues on Firefox that we weren't on Chrome. Safari was running differently. They wouldn't inject our ads the same way. So it allowed us to be able to use that with no additional cost. And then we also had an annoying and pushy account executive that said, you should use this solution, and he was right? Like, this guy was 4 or 5 calls a week, and I thought I was popular, but he was just trying to sell, and he was right. So when we picked Sauce Labs, that's when things really took off. So this is the implementation of what we did. So this is Hoth. So for Star Wars fans out there, at this point I had hired 2 engineers, and they were huge Star Wars nerds. So they decided to name this Hoth, which is, I believe, the ice planet from the second Star Wars, or is it the second Star Wars? Empire Strikes Back. So they named it Hoth, which was Hook Online Test Hub. So what it was a culmination of all our tests run with all the results from the last run. So on the left-hand side, you'll see on the far left, the publishers, and then all the tests that are being run through Selenium for those publishers. On the right are our actual placements. So what we also did was we scripted screenshots to be able to go in and take a screenshot. We checked for that we were injecting the ad correctly through a coverage code that we add, but we also took a screenshot to show that we were serving correctly. So these could be manually tested as well. This was also used by our sales and marketing team to show how many placements we had and what the placements actually look like. Red meant fail, so that would not only show up red on this page, so if you were visually looking at it, it would show up red, but it also, we set it up to trigger our PagerDuty alerting system. So an engineer was, as soon as the test failed, an engineer was notified through PagerDuty and at any time throughout the day and night, unfortunately for them. So implementation. So in the first 6 months, we went from 4 hours to less than 40 minutes to run. We had 10 virtuals, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for us it was a godsend. So the scripts took less than 40 minutes, and that's as we added additional publishers to our suite. Our response rate to placement downtime dropped over 75%. So because we were alerting engineers directly when something broke, that allowed us to fix those things almost immediately. And then on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, we found 7 publisher site issues that ended up saving us over $200,000 over those 2 days, which over the course of our revenue was a substantial amount. We were now alerting publisher sites when they broke their own thing, which was a huge boost for our relationships as well. We went from potentially causing issues to helping them resolve their issues faster, and we became an even more integrated partner with them. So that is eastbound and down. Dial, dial bills, y'all. All right. So I think we need another break. We're in the home stretch now, but now I have the good treats. So also from Zingerman's. Now, I can't throw these very far because they're brownies. They're large. So if anyone in the front couple rows wants a Zingerman's brownie, again, lots of nuts, lots of chocolate, lots of happiness. So if anyone doesn't want any of these, Mike? Yeah, I know you will. Cool. So again, this is actually like a big bribe because you guys are putting up with this presentation that probably is boring the heck out of you. So anyone else want anything? Yeah? All right. Brownie. Oh. They won't let me take this back through security. So actually, they thought that it was potentially Colorado brownies. So the dog did sniff these multiple times. So anyone else? Snack? Yeah? Okay. Brownie? Oh my, really? The back? You are from Michigan. Oh, off the wall? Oh, sorry. I did play college baseball, but that was a long time ago. Okay, so home stretch, like I said. A situation now arose, so our company was doing extremely well, and we caught the eye of Criteo, which is my current employer. So Criteo actually purchased HookLogic in 2016. For those of you that don't know what Criteo does, they're in the ad space. If you've been on a website like Best Buy and looked at a laptop, and then you've gone to CNN or ESPN, anything like that, and you see that laptop again in the side rail or on the top, that's Criteo. So they have tens and tens of thousands of placements. They don't care where the ad's placed, they just want you to be able to see it, right? They want you to be able to buy the things that you're looking at. So they saw in us a partnership that is already existing with publisher sites in the in-grain and organic ad area. So where they are all on, Criteo is on the banners and on the side and the right rail and potentially pop-ups, now we're on the page already. So now we're essentially saturating the page with potential purchases and revenue. So one thing that came around with this is when we were purchased, I was ready to fight, right? Like I finally had a solution that was working. We proved it out. They weren't buying the QA team, they were buying the company. So I was ready to really fight and sit down and argue our case. I sat down and was very pleasantly surprised to find that they too already use Floss Labs. So that was a nice realization, but it was also a situation where I felt like Christmas morning because I went from 10 virtuals to 75, and they used them at like 10%. So I was like, okay, so now we're able to scale even more, and without even the company noticing. So now our scripts, when we run off threading off of the all 75 virtuals, which we do in Q4, now our scripts are done in less than 10 minutes. And we can also run those scripts anytime we release our delivery server as regression testing. So it's really a win-win being acquired by Criteo. Plus I get a cool sweatshirt. Here's a funny story, and I'm really mad that they're taping this because if anyone from Criteo Paris is listening to this, they're gonna get upset with this story. But when I found out I was presenting, I was like, I need some swag. I need like a cool collared shirt, really just dazzle me with whatever you can send. So they sent a European medium. Our Parisian employees really like to wear tight clothes. And when I put it on, I literally couldn't feel my fingers. I was like, I cannot go in front of anyone. This is not my second presentation like Mike. This is my first, and I'm not going to humiliate myself. So we'll go with the sweatshirt, and it might be a little hot under the lights, but just a funny story about European attire. So we'll get back to the questions to ask yourself. So What matters most? This is going to be different for everybody. What matters most? It's going to change too. It's not going to be a situation where the same answer is going to be there every time you ask the question. But then where are you going to grow the fastest? Like, where are you going to make the most impact with the work that you're doing and your team's doing? Where can you add the most value? Sometimes where you're going to grow the fastest isn't where you can grow or make the most impact on value. And what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, that's one thing that as a startup we weren't thinking about. We were thinking about today. Like, how do we make today better? And then when we started to focus on how do we make tomorrow better, that was when we were able to take off a little bit as a QA team. Then what do I need to do to get that done? And these questions should all lead you to that. So this is just a side note, extra credit, making results work for you. So to gain a champion, that's why we created Hoth. Like, we could have just run our scripts and it could have been a less pretty solution. But what we did is, by creating Hoth, we got our sales team and marketing team on board with us because they were able to sell that tool. They liked the visual. They liked the pretty. They liked being able to go to that page anytime they wanted and see what was working and what wasn't. So having a champion, we were able to say, okay, you guys support us when we come and ask for more. So, and again, if you fail quickly and fail cheaply. It didn't cost us any money to try and create our own server farm out of old used laptops. It cost a little bit of time, but we found out quickly it didn't work. So if you fail quickly, that's a situation where you're not costing yourself as much. And then number two, and this is what we did, take the results back and ask for more. So what I did was, with the help of marketing and sales, is said, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, we saved almost $200,000 in potential lost revenue. So if we added X number of virtuals, we can increase the potential of catching issues faster. If we are allowed to hire more QA engineers, we can script more faster to make sure our ads are always covered. So it's essentially be so good they can't ignore you. So in conclusion, Mike, I'm glad that you had a quote as your last slide too. This is a pretty famous quote from where I come from. The same solution doesn't work for everyone. However, by identifying what is important to you and your team and your company, you can find what fits for you. And that's from me. So thank you, maybe some clapping, and any questions? You want a candy bar, don't you? You want a candy bar, right? That's your question? Can you get a candy bar?
So you work with a lot of ads, and
yeah.
more and more people use a lot of ad blockers.
Mm-hmm.
Does it break your stuff in any way? Like, how do you deal with it?
That's a great question. It does not break our ads because we're organic, right? Like, we're not, the JavaScript that we inject is their JavaScript, right? Like, it's the same application code that they're using, so it's not showing up as an ad.
Do you test like exactly on their production systems, like Walmart.com and check there?
We do, but we have the ability to serve in our test environments using their live pages that no one can see. So we can do IP-based testing. So it looks like their production ad, but they're not going to see it until we push it to production. Sure, good questions. Yes?
Do you guys have the ad network? Do you host the ad on your servers, or do you give the media and the publisher host the ad?
The second. Yep, we don't host it on ours. We actually reference the same product page URL and image that they have on their site because they're already selling it, right? Like, if we hosted all of it, then we'd have to push even more during the delivery. So what we do is we reference what they have to provide us.
And how do you guys get paid? CPA, CPC?
Yep, it's CPC. So what we do is we do a rev share with the publisher sites. So they get a percentage of the click, as do we.
So when you were testing with Selenium, what were you testing, that when people click on it actually pass all the parameters, or that the ad shows?
We started with the ad showing, and then we've added that when it clicks, it goes through correctly. So what we do is we add beaconing onto everything that happens on the site. So anytime our ad is clicked, a click beacon fires. So we were able to test that and make sure that all the identifying characteristics in that beacon are correct. But then also the fact that the ad is showing. So the ad showing is the first step, and then the clicking on the ad is where everybody gets paid.
For the retargeting, can you read from the cookie of the publisher, or you use your own cookies?
No, we have our own cookies.
Questions? No?
Great.
All
Thanks,
right,
everyone.
thanks. So we have a break until about 4 o'clock. See y'all back at 4.